Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues podcast. I'm joined once again by Harry. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Excited, weirdly, to talk about all things Everton once again, despite it not being the best of weeks on the pitch.
Yeah, like I say, it's actually a while since we've had a loss to talk about. To be fair, so it's one of them where we can moan all we like, but I think we're the last few seasons at this point in the year, this would have been a much darker tone for most of these episodes, and this is
Yeah,
probably going to be a bit of a rare one that's maybe a bit more negative. But with that being said, I don't know. It doesn't seem there doesn't seem to be as much. I don't know, like despair. I don't know if that's the right word. Following this one, and I mean to be fair, I think a lot of us now have maybe got a bit of a thicker skin, especially when it comes to Anfield, and we kind of brace ourselves for the worst before the game even happens. But I mean, to be fair, I think starting if we're going chronologically, I guess in the build up to the game, I thought this one was a bit odd in that there just didn't seem to be many nerves at all. I thought from like reading people on social media, I saw a lot of people saying this that they're just a bit more calm than they usually are, which is
mm,
a bit of an odd one. And I'll be honest, I think even from the players' side of things as well. I thought Moyes seemed a lot more relaxed at his press conference before the match than Slot did, and Slot was talking about the last game and all the refereeing decisions like that. And I genuinely think they were more worked up for this game than we were. And you can argue that obviously it's a lot more important for them to be winning games than it is for us at the moment. We've got a lot less to play for, I'd say, at the moment than they have. But I don't know, they seemed a lot more nervy and anxious for this one. And they gave us all that stick about the game a few weeks ago about it being our cup final, but I don't
yeah.
know, they seem to be taking this one a lot more seriously and felt a lot more nervous in the build up to this one. I don't know how you felt about
Yeah, I guess before we get into the match itself, you're absolutely right. But I don't know. I think has either side really got a lot to play for right now? I think we sat on the pod last week, didn't we? And we said realistically, Everton could lose this next run of games here now. We could go on the complete opposite of the run that we've been under Moyes and really lose the next five. And yeah, okay, Ipswich won last night, which I must admit, when I did the post-match reaction video last night for the Toffee Blues, go and check it out on YouTube, by the way. Shameless, selfless plug there. I did have a tiny little wobble about if Ipswich now go on a run and we go on the opposite run, are we going to get sucked right back into it? But it was just a brief moment of weakness and maybe just that bitterness creeping back in. But I think you're right. There wasn't a lot in it because there probably isn't a lot in it. We're all but safe. They're all but champions. We know where we are. We know where they are. We had that great game at Goodison where it could have, they'll say they should have won it. We'll say we should have won it. And I mean, last night, I know we'll get into the finer detail of it, but they won. We probably expected that if we're being brutally honest with ourselves. But did they deserve to? Did we deserve to lose? Was it a kind of game where anyone deserved anything? It wasn't that for the neutral, it certainly wasn't an attractive watch. I mean, the half time will show you that Sky in particular, if you were watching it at home on TV, just fancied showing 42 different angles of the Tarkovsky tackle. So, you know, was there a lot going on? I don't know. It was probably the most deflated and lethargic Merseyside derby there has been for quite some time. But I guess it's because it's like you say, in recent seasons, last night's defeat at this stage of the season would have posed a lot more problems to Everton than it has done this season. I think I will just say there was a point though where like Southampton were winning and Ipswich were winning and Jota scored and I was like, oh well, that's it. We're right back into it. And I was prepared to come on here and have a right moan today, but I've settled. I've had a good night's sleep, Al, and I'm all right about it.
that. Yeah, yeah. I think it's. I think we just all know what to expect from these games now,
Yeah.
especially at Anfield. Like you look at the last 3 or 4 seasons now, they all seem to follow these same patterns where obviously they we know they're going to have all the ball and that most of the game is going to be spent on them almost camping on the edge of our penalty area, just trying to find a way through, and that's making it very difficult for them. And then we'll hit them on the break and maybe have a few chances that you look back on and think, oh, we that was a big chance that we maybe should have missed that. I think last night is about as clear cut an example of that as you have. You have the Beto being just a fraction offside and putting that away. And then obviously just a few minutes later, getting through again, making Van Dijk look like a complete and utter donkey, by the way. And just hitting the inside of the post. And it's one of them where he's had so many of them lately, where
Yeah.
he had that really good run where he couldn't stop scoring, and then it almost seems like he's like overthinking it a bit too much. Like I said, we talked about it before, the kind of DCL-itis, if you will, like of this whole thing, like getting through on goal and just overthinking the finish a bit. But
Yeah.
even then, he was still so unlucky, like getting that finish. But you look at it back, and you think maybe he should have gone the other way. But he still so nearly managed to squeeze it in, beat the keeper, all ends up, and like I say, it's just those fractional inches that stop us being what 2-0 up at half time, maybe, like because they barely
Yeah.
threatened in the first half. They had a lot of the ball, but didn't really have any clear cut chances at all. And again,
No.
it's just one of them where I think a lot of us at half time just went, oh, well, here we go. We've had our chances now. We'll start to tire, and they'll pick us off in the second half, and lo and behold, that's what happened. But sticking with the first half though, like
Yeah.
and obviously the major talking point that everyone's going on about is, of course, that you've already mentioned, of course, I mean, give us your take first of all on the Beto
Oh,
chances, and
yeah.
then
I mean,
yeah.
you gotta be able to like for me, we sat on the pod, didn't we, last week, and we said if you had to pick with all of those options fully fit now, with Broja back and Chimiti back and Beto there, anyone but DCL was available for that game last night, and who was he going to go with? And we knew it was the right decision to start Beto. Like you can't put the last couple of games as a black mark against him as a reason to bring Broja in. I think whoever was leading the line last night, it was going to be helpless, a very thankless task. What I would say is comparatively the Moyes regime under the Dyche regime is if you're a lone striker at Everton now, there will be chances come your way. We know that our chance creation stats have gone up. I just think where I'm at with Beto is, and particularly in that game last night against these big sides that we're going to have to play over the next few weeks, you've got to be clinical and not to sound too much like a line from FIFA '05 commentary. Like you've got to take your chances, and I think what we're lacking is someone who has the confidence right now to take their chances. And he was such a handful for Van Dijk and Kanate last night. You said it there. He made him look like a donkey. I couldn't agree more. I think the hype that he gets as a centre back that he's never dribbled past, and I think it's because constantly balls just go over the top of him. So therefore, is he dribbled past because everyone can just run over? Like for me anyway. But back to Beto. I think if one of those had gone in, if one of them in the previous games had gone in, he scores that. Like, I think he's just someone now that is slowly, like you say, kind of back to where he was pre Moyes and pre that initial run in the team. I don't think it was a bad miss. He hits the post. I think, Kelleher comes out. He can do better, of course he can. And if it was down the other end, they might have scored that kind of chance. I don't know, but I think if he had that time again, if he had his chance again, it probably goes in. And I think it's just unlucky. And I think we keep talking. The theme of this pod today is we know what to expect when we go to Anfield. The footballing gods are never on our side in that hellhole. So like we just knew that it was going to hit the post. It probably went in and was AI edited to hit the post, to be perfectly honest. But I don't think we drop him. I think he has to keep going in this run. He's such a handful for defenders. What I think I said this, was it on the pod last week, or I've certainly said this in some kind of Everton setting over the last 7 days. What he desperately needs, David Moyes, this is not a more clinical striker. It is more clinical wingers, because what we are so sorely lacking is someone that when Beto hits the post is already there, like a Kevin Morales type, a Stephen Pienaar type, that is just there to leather the rebound in. Because at the moment he is the lone striker in every sense of the word. There is never anyone within about 7 or 8 feet of him when he has a shot. And I think that's criminal. Like, we know that he's not going to score 10 out of 10 chances. So you've got to have someone there for the follow up or to give him an option. And we don't currently have that. So forgiveness, I think, is the message that I'd put out there for Beto, because he's going to be the one that leads the line. I'd be very surprised, and we'll come on to the Arsenal game, but I'd be very surprised if he changes it up for the Arsenal game or the games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the phrase you used there, thankless task, is exactly how I describe it. And to be honest, I thought he was brilliant, particularly in the first half. I thought I've rarely seen a striker bully Van Dijk as much as he did there, and Konate as well. Konate struggled to deal with him that much that Van Dijk tried to take over it, and even he was struggling with it. And it's one of them where you said about the confidence is maybe lacking a bit more now, and people will always say, "Oh, we need a striker who's like ice cold in those situations," but it's just like there's not many strikers in the world
No,
who will just score every one-on-one they have. I know just off the top of my head, I think Ollie Watkins is one of the best strikers in the league right now, and I know so many Villa fans are getting very frustrated with just how many golden opportunities he misses. I think he missed a few at Goodison when we played them a few months ago as well, just off the top of my head. It's these strikers don't just come along who can score all these chances, and I don't think any other striker in our team even has that chance. Like Beto works so hard to make that chance
yeah,
happen. It's a pretty poor pass from Decore into him that he has a lot to do to get it back under his control and then get past Van Dijk in that way. And I think obviously that'll be what everyone focuses on, but he was working so hard in such a difficult circumstance, as you say, to make stuff happen, and I thought he really deserved a goal last night. He took the goal that got disallowed really well as well,
very
to be
well,
fair.
right? Yeah, I
So
liked that.
so he's definitely still the most natural finisher we have, even if he doesn't score as much as we'd like him to. And I
Yeah,
completely agree. I don't think he's done anything to warrant being dropped. Really, I thought Brozier came on and he still doesn't look match fit to me. I think he almost looked
no,
like a player who was scared to get injured, and that's fair enough. There's no reason for him to overcommit to the Everton project right now if he's maybe angling for a move in the summer. He doesn't want to be getting a
yeah,
long-term injury again. I completely understand that. So for me, it would be rotate. I'd be prioritizing rotating Shamiti over Brozier now for me. I think in these next few games, and yeah, I definitely think Beto deserves to stay in the side. Absolutely. Um, like I say, I don't think there's any other way to do this, but just ask you outright. The Tarkowski tackle, is it a red card? What?
oh, ow. I'm only just recovering. I had to have an ice bath from the amount of burns that I got on X yesterday for saying in my post match that it was. And I've reflected on everybody's comments and I've had another look at it. And I'm doubling down. It was, and he's reckless and he's silly. And I'm sorry, we're talking about how many players have stepped up under Moyes. And Taki is one of those players I'll never forget. I think sort of the last season that Jags was in the Everton side, and everyone was sort of gunning to get rid of him. He just wasn't the same player that he was 3 or 4 seasons previous. And I think when he left, we lacked what he had as a squad player. And so I'm very tentative about saying Tarkovsky has to go in the summer, because I'm not hopping on any kind of like hate bandwagon. But for me, Tarkovsky does not need to be starting big games next season. And I thought it was a really reckless challenge. I will say exactly what I said in the post match as well. With the first glance of that, it looked an absolutely superb Derby tackle. It looked like he comes straight through him, gets all of the ball, leaves a little bit on him, and that's exactly what you want in the early stages of a derby. Like, be the bully rather than the ones getting bullied, which I think is what Liverpool were trying to do throughout that game. But the more you watch that replay, it's sloppy. If you look at his face, it looks like there's malice and intent in it. And we might have our first full-blown argument on this podcast, Al. You might tell me I'm wrong, but for me, it was a red card, and he's a very lucky boy to stay on the pitch yesterday.
Mm. Well, I'll start with the red card, and I'll tell you now. I do agree. I do think it was a red card. Again, looking back, I think my first instinct that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I know it's the old cliche, but it is one of them that, yeah, 25 years ago, fair enough. It's probably, it might not even have been given as a foul. I don't know. Might have been just a foul, not a yellow. I don't know. But I think the way I always look at these things is if it's the other way round, if Van Dijk makes that tackle on Decore, there's murder. There's absolute murder on
Yeah.
the timeline from Everton fans, and on the other side of things, it's Liverpool fans saying, "Oh no, it's just a perfectly good derby tackle. That's what you want in a derby, isn't it? Wins the ball." Or say it's exactly like that. It's all tribalism, and
Yeah.
like my heart wants me to say, "Oh, get in, Tarkowski, go through him, lad. Love that," but. Well, logically, it's a red card. It is. It's a very reckless tackle. I don't agree with people saying that it's intent and that he's
Mm,
trying to hurt him. I think he is trying to get the ball. It's a firm tackle. It's one of them where if McAllister actually goes properly for the ball, he probably doesn't get it. It probably doesn't look as bad as it is. It's one of them because McAllister kind of pulls out of it a little bit and lets Tarkowski go through him. That it looks a lot worse than it does. But yeah, it is a red card, and
yeah.
I it's one of them where Liverpool fans are still moaning about it. If McAllister had gone off injured, then I'd maybe understand that. But you won the game. It didn't really affect anything. Like I don't really understand why there's still such aggro about it. But yeah, it's one of them where if they'd given a red card, I'd have absolutely no complaints with it. However, I am gonna just quickly go back to the first point you made about dropping Tarkowski from the side, which I don't agree with at all, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I think I think Tarkowski this season in particular is coming for quite a bit of criticism, and I completely understand he is getting on a little bit now, and compared to Brantford, he does look a bit more of a rugged, old-fashioned defender, I guess.
Yeah.
He's a tiny bit more of a liability. However, I think his performance level has still been exceptional this year. I really do, and I think like as you say about when Jagielka left, we kind of missed that sort of player for a while. I do
Yeah.
think if Tarkowski stopped playing in this side, you'd notice a difference. I thought,
Mm,
despite obviously the incident that everyone's talking about yesterday, I still thought he had a really, really good game. Pretty much won
yeah.
everything that went into Liverpool's box. Still exceptional, with like leads all the rankings for blocks and interceptions in the league, and has done pretty much in his whole time here. Is such a reliable figure in that he's like never injured. What is it? He's played like 105 games in a row or something stupid. It's like a
Yeah.
record in Premier League history. He's still such a reliable player. He's obviously the captain, and obviously once Coleman goes, he'll probably become club captain as opposed to just,
Yeah.
team captain or whatever it is, like basically for the player who actually plays on the pitch, so he's captain or whatever. Um, so I haven't seen he had a terrible game against Bournemouth, didn't he, a few weeks ago in the cup, and a lot of people
Yeah.
got on his back about that. But I think apart from that, really, I still think he's been really, really solid for us and a really good addition. And while Jake O'Brien is still playing so well at right back, and I imagine the idea would be moving Brantford and O'Brien together as a centre back pairing, provided Brantford stays next season, of course. I'd still be sticking with how it is. I don't think the defence needs to be addressed too much. It's definitely other areas of the pitch that need to be prioritised, and I haven't seen anything that makes me think Tarkowski should be dropped from this side at the moment. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'll disagree with you on that part of things, but
We were due one. We were due a
yeah,
disagreement. I think
absolutely,
Blues
yeah,
it started to question things if we agreed on everything. I
yeah,
would just say as a follow on, what a wonderful like problem that we've now got though, because I think when Moyes first came in, everyone said, we don't have a right back. We don't, Mikalenko's not good enough at left back. The centre back partnership isn't quite right. We've really got to put our money in the defence next season if Pickford stays or, Pickford goes and we need a new goalkeeper. But I think it is a really nice thing now that we can say his coaching and his tactical changes have made it so that we could probably leave the summer window without having to make too many changes to that starting back four, as you say, and that actually that money can go and be spent, or that recruitment strategy can go and be spent in terms of looking at, like we said earlier, wingers to support the strikers. I do think it's still very unclear who starts as an Everton striker next season. Part of me thinks that potentially Beto is going to be there for another year, and they will just look at the sort of midfield and the winger positions. But yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on Tarkowski. I always panic. I get PTSD out for that Merseyside derby where Funes Mori just like decided to turn into a trained assassin and then walked off the pitch kissing the badge. Like we were really happy that he'd done that for the club, and I just panic sometimes with Tarkowski, when the legs go, when you're a little bit slower, can you really afford to play the way that Tarkowski plays? And obviously it's made him a prolific, I mean, such a good signing for Everton, one of the best signings, I think, from sort of this poaching from relegated teams that we've been doing with the budget constraints. Certainly like a great signing, but I do just worry a little bit as the years tick on. He's in a position, Garner Gay can play till he's like 45 in that Everton midfield probably, and he'll be fine. Can Tarkowski say the same at centre back with the way that he puts himself in and about that box? Is it going to cost us? As I say, he was lucky yesterday. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh, and we'll see how he goes in the rest of the season. But yeah, really, really kind of. I would say as a closing remark on this particular topic, I would like to apologise to Liverpool fans as well, because it must be a really hard day for them that they now can stop talking about the Pickford tackle on Van Dijk and they've got something new to talk about. I think sort of 5 years on and they've had to park that particular bus. I think, yeah, really sorry that they've now got something more recent to bang on about for the next few years.
Yeah, well, they're all moaning about the bloody tackle he made on Nunes as well. That was the whistle.
Yeah,
The whistle blew half an hour before that even happened, and they were
that was
still
so
claiming for a penalty.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like I say, it was a dead ball situation. So he decides he can do what he wants.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, we won't be hearing the end of that for a while, will we? Um, but I mean, we'll stick with Tarkovsky purely because he was obviously at the centre of the other major talking point for this game that, funnily enough, isn't getting as much media attention for
Yeah,
whatever
weird
reason,
that, isn't it?
even though it had much more of a bearing on the result. But yeah, like I say, the goal was coming. I'll freely admit. Like
Yeah,
second half, Liverpool started way stronger than us, and I think we looked knackered for the whole second half. Really, it's one of them where I think we gave everything into just trying to nick a goal in the first half and giving ourselves something to defend for the remainder of the game. And once that didn't work out, it was a little bit, yeah, maybe we just sit back a little bit more now and just try and get the draw. And that never works out. As I say, it's
yeah.
we've seen it so often at Anfield. However, I have watched this bank many times now. I've watched the Sky analysis of it. I've even seen the breakdown of the rules and all the wording of all that, and I still don't understand how that's not offside. And I think it's another one of these where, yeah, based on the rule book, maybe they've made the right decision there, but that means the rule book's flawed. Because that makes no sense to me at all as to how, even though Diaz plays it perfectly and that he does that thing where he like, just looks so casual as if like he's not even going for the ball at all. So he's making it clear, I know I'm offside, so I'm not going for the ball. I'm not interfering with play. But Tarkowski doesn't make the tackle if he doesn't know,
Yeah,
if he knows Diaz isn't there. The ball just goes through to Pickford. That's just obvious to me, and he has to go to ground to reach the ball and stop it getting through, and is then out of position, and that's what leads to the goal. And like as I say, it's the wording of the rules that has probably counted against us here. All these fine details, but I cannot understand how that's not offside, and I don't think I ever will do.
yeah. Yeah, do you know what, that sort of 40, 45, 1 minute clip, if you watch it back, is the definition. If you could have a video dictionary, that would be the definition used to describe if that was down the other end, it would have been given as offside. I would bet my every penny that I earned this year, I would put on if that had been down the other end, if that had been the Beto chance, and I don't know, Harrison with his weird haircut that we need to talk about at some point later is stood there and it's blocking Van Dijk, that would have 100% been given as offside. And I dare anybody from the PGMOL or whatever it's called to come and tell us otherwise, because but you know what? I think I got caught up in the moment because the goal went in. and Sky just dismissed it so quickly. Oh, it's a goal. And I think Gary Neville said something to the effect on comms of like, oh, they might be looking at offsides. No, no, they're not going to look at. And the game had restarted, and you thought, okay, so again, if that had happened down the other end, I just think we've got to be a bit nastier. This is the other observation I took from that game last night, Al, is that we sometimes just let things happen to us as a club. Every throw in last night that went against Liverpool, they were round the referee. Jota got booked for screaming at a linesman for giving an Everton throw instead of a Liverpool throw. I just think we take too much on the chin, and it's all very well and good. You know, I saw a lot of people praising Moyes and Branthwaite last night for coming out in the post matches and saying the referees got it wrong and it was definitely an offside. Fair play for like finding some backbone. Go and surround the referee. Just play Liverpool at their own game a little bit, and I just think that's the bit that's missing. We're still sometimes a little bit like nicely softly Everton, and I would just like to see a little bit more. There's been a bit of an injustice here because if the players on the pitch are not calling for that, then us in the stands and us sitting at home watching haven't got a prayer to kind of sit there and say, well, from 500 miles away it looked offside. You know, like if the players on the pitch aren't doing it, and that's what annoyed me a little bit more. Really, I've come to accept that again, footballing gods being against us, we don't get decisions there. Liverpool will get decisions there. Fair enough. That's where we are. It's where we are rather. But yeah, I just think for me, that was the bit that bothered me more. It's a beautiful goal. Like it's a really nice goal. Like you said, it was coming. I'd love someone in our team to be able to score a goal like that. So, you know, a lot of it is probably a little bit of like bitterness. But yeah, I would just love our players in the next couple of games to just really get on at referees and get on at opposition players. And I just, yeah, I would just like to see that a little bit more in the match when it counts, when they can make a difference.
I completely agree, and I remember the specific example in the second half. I think it was a corner, might have been a free kick or something, but Tarkowski, as I think it was McAllister was on him, and literally like arms right around the waist. McAllister's face is like in his elbow, like he has no idea where the ball is. His whole priority is just keeping hold of Tarkowski and making sure he doesn't reach the ball. And I remember Ashley Young last season when we played Newcastle won a penalty for that purely because when it happened and he went to ground, he goes straight up to the referee and starts screaming in his face. And it's exactly what you talk about. That would have been
Yeah.
drilled into him from his time at Manchester United. Because if
Yeah.
big clubs do it because they know they can get away with it. And as you say, Liverpool were doing it over everything, as you say. And like I say, it's one of them that I almost think we're almost told maybe not to do it as much purely because
Yeah, I
we
wondered
we
that.
we just seem to get booked for it. And if we complain about anything, I think we did in the first half. I think there was at least one where we got booked for the set. It happens all the time, and yet these big clubs can do it. All get Van Dijk was moaning so much in particular yesterday, and I have no idea how he didn't get booked. And it almost
No,
seems to be like, oh, maybe the captain can get away with it then. But that was Tarkowski being fouled. So Tarkowski needs to get in his face. And I don't know if it's because he's already been booked that he's a bit more cautious about doing it more. But I completely agree. And yeah, it's a good point you phrased there. Like yeah, Moyes needs to drill into these players that we need to like complain for everything and contest for everything
yeah.
because that's how these clubs like it helps them sway decisions more into their favour. Absolutely. Um,
Do you not think as well that it just makes if the players get around the referee in a moment like that? So that one you raised, I completely had forgotten about that because it happened so late in the game. But that for me, I was looking at that going that should be checked. And in that case, if the players just surround the referee and you take a couple of bookings for that, but doesn't that then stop the game to the point where they can review it? Like you are almost swaying the decision to get VAR to intervene, or he's going to put his hand to his ear and get someone to have a look at it for him. I just think we by just accepting it, we're allowing them to just start the game again and the next phase starts. And so they then can't change it. You know, I think that's where I'd just like us to be a little bit more smart and play the way that the rules work for teams now.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we would have got that penalty last season if Young hadn't complained about it. I think it's one of them that just would have got dismissed. And like I said, there's been so many like that with like little pulls and stuff like that in the air. It only seemed to get made a big deal of is if as you say, the players make a big deal out of it. So you say give them something to think about. Absolutely. Um, Yeah, we'll move on to the Arsenal game now, I think, and there was a little bit of it kind of all leads in together really, a bit of talk about how we set up against Liverpool and some of the players that were brought in and some of the players that were left on the bench maybe, or probably should have maybe even been starting. I think Ndiaye is probably a good starting point with that. Obviously, everyone wants him back as soon as possible, but again, I think to me it was clear when he came on that he's probably not ready to be playing just yet. It was almost a bit of a desperate throw him on and see if he can work a bit of magic, but he really struggled to get involved in the game, I think, and I think that does indicate to me that he's probably not fully fit yet. Similar case with Brozier, really. Um, but with that said, I need Harrison out of the side as soon as possible. So,
Yep.
so just get anyone in there, even if Ndai's only got one leg working, just get him on instead because I'm sick of watching Jack Harrison play for Everton. And
Yeah, I'd honest to God take Charlie Adam on the left wing
yeah,
rather than set piece taker or set piece coach at the moment because he ain't doing anything for us as a set piece coach, and Harrison is not doing anything for us on either wing. And Dyer last night, totally agree with you. I don't think he's ready to start the Arsenal game, particularly because he finished the Liverpool game. It's a very quick turnaround now to a Saturday lunchtime kickoff. I liked him doing his kind of Stone Cold Steve Austin impression, turning up with like his leg braced, like he was going to put like a steel chair through Van Dijk's head or something. But yeah, I think it's probably a bit early. I I think this is one of these things what the fans want versus what Moyes is going to do, and it's going to be very different. I think we could go family fortunes on this and ask 100 Evertonians, should Jack Harrison play for Everton again? And no one, including Jack Harrison's parents, would say yes, he should start for Everton again. I do think that he's going to, because I don't think we've got the options, and I don't think Moyes is going to risk some of these lads that are coming back from injury with the run in that we've got. So yeah, that
yeah.
answers that one really.
Yeah, like I say, I can't imagine if Lindstrom wasn't fit enough to make the bench on Wednesday. I can't imagine him being ready to start on Saturday, and that's pretty
No.
much the only viable alternative there is. And it's similar with Alcaraz really as well, isn't it? In that still a very good player. I thought he looked very sharp actually in times during the
Yeah.
derby, but he's not a winger, is he? And I think you need him in the middle to impact the play a bit more. So yeah, it's frustrating that we're down to the bare bones in those positions. As you say, it's definitely a position that needs a lot of work in the summer on both sides,
Yeah.
really. I think in an ideal world, you do still want Ndiaye in the middle. We've been talking about this a lot
Yeah.
throughout for the whole time he's been here. I think in the middle is where he'll really thrive. So if we manage to get two quality wingers in the summer, maybe on each side that we're able to keep fit for the majority of the season, then maybe we're onto something. But yeah, we're definitely down to the bare bones at the moment. In terms of Arsenal, then, it's an interesting fixture. This
Yeah.
we had a I think we they still consider us a bit of a bogey team, really, especially at Goodison. We've had a very good record over them in recent seasons. Obviously, they just managed to beat us last year. That was a quite an unlucky game from what I remember. I think we defended very well, and it took a
Yeah.
really good goal to finally break us down. But yeah, what you thinking ahead of this one?
Oh man. Heart is saying you literally heard my thought process there as well, which is really interesting podcast material. Um, I think a draw is possibly what's coming. I think we played well in large spells last night against a very good Liverpool team, just to kind of box that one off. I think you're right. I think at Goodison, we've got 4 games left. Like they've all got to be big games. They've all got to feel like big games. They've got to all have big performances. I do think Arsenal will possibly have a little bit too much quality for Everton for me to sit here and say we'll go and win. But Arsenal are not Liverpool, and that's why Liverpool is so far ahead at the top. I think they could slip, and I think we could capitalise. I think we will look to bounce back. So I'd go for a 1-1 draw if pushed for a score prediction, to be honest.
Yeah, I do sort of agree. I almost think that the fact that Arsenal aren't really playing for anything anymore. There's still a distinct chance that Liverpool slip up, but I almost think that the fact that Arsenal don't have as much pressure on them now as they have throughout most of the season might actually see them play a bit better. And obviously they've got Saka back in the team now, and he's already got a goal on his first game back, and they'll be feeling confident in themselves. And yeah, I think there is a good chance they catch us out on Saturday, but there's definitely no shame in that. They're still,
No.
you know, it's still a very quality side, and I think yeah, it's just another just case really of us giving a good account of ourselves. I think a draw is possible. I'd be very surprised if we managed to nick a win over them. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I think it'll probably be another defeat on Saturday, especially with such a quick turnaround after the
Yeah,
derby as well. You've got to factor that in as well. But yeah, just to round off, we'll do a quick lineup quiz. I believe you have a game lined up for me here.
I do. I picked this one for many reasons. None more so than it was a very sunny Sunday, 6th of April. So we're coming on for 11 years ago that this game happened at Goodison Park, Everton versus Arsenal. It was the 2014 season. It was Everton and Arsenal in the run-in to get that Champions League spot under Roberto Martinez, and a certain Arsenal manager, then player, scored an own goal that capped off a 3-0 win for the Toffees that day. It was one of my favourite Everton games in recent memory. So it's a Roberto Martinez Everton side with hints of David Moyes' first tenure. And over to you, Al, to try and predict the starting 11.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love this game. This is it might be the best Everton game I've ever seen in terms of our
Yeah,
performance. We absolutely battered them, and it's so frustrating to me we didn't get fourth after this. But
yeah,
anyway, so yeah, Howard in goal,
yeah,
Coleman at right back, Baines at left back, and then it'll
yeah.
be I think Distan and Jagielka.
So, Distan, yes. Jagielka is not in the squad. I think he was
Oh,
out injured at
must
this
have been
point.
injured
So
then.
Jags was not in the squad.
Oh, okay. I'll come back to that. I've got a couple of options there, but I'll do the so then you got Stephen Naismith started, Lukaku started,
Yep, yep.
Morales started.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Osman started and he went off. He went off injured early. I think he did his iron or something like that. It was a really freaky injury. So
Yeah,
Osman
well
definitely
done.
started.
He did start 8th minute. He was booked and substituted within the first 8 minutes of
Yeah,
that
so
game.
maybe
Well
not his
done.
favorite game ever, but um, have I got two midfielders left to get?
Two mids and the
And the
remaining centre
centre back.
back, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I don't. I have the feeling Barkley didn't play, so I'm gonna say Barry and McCarthy.
Well done, yeah. The antithesis, or not the antithesis, rather, but the core of Roberto Martinez Everton
Yeah.
side for me, McCarthy and Barry.
Right. So I think, unless there's someone I'm missing, I think it's got to be either. I'll say. I've still got two lines
It's
left. So
fine. I won't react. Yeah, you still got
yeah,
two lives. You're playing with house money now. It's fine.
yeah. So I'll say John Stones as
It
the other
was,
centre
yeah.
back.
Well done. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. John Stones was the
Yeah.
other centre back. A very interesting bench. So Barkley did come on for Osman when he was injured.
Right.
The other two subs in that game were Delafeu and McGeady came on for Naismith and Lukaku. The rest of that bench, though, Joel Robles, Tony Hibbert, and then the other two subs were Luke Garbutt and Alcaraz were the other two
Blimey.
subs. There you go.
Yeah. Do you remember during COVID they started posting those like full 90-minute games?
It was
I
glorious,
yeah,
yeah.
I remember watching that one back. I'm Jesus Christ, we used to be so good. What the hell happened? Like, oh my word. Like I say that watching that back cemented it for me. It just like yeah, that I've never seen an Everton side as good as that. That day
Yeah, it was peak
we were
peak
on
Everton.
fire.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I say, it's all been downhill from there, really. That was as good as it got. So hopefully one day we can return to that level again. But yeah, that sums everything up. So yeah, thank you very much again for joining me, Harry.
No
Uh,
worries, mate.
and yeah, hopefully and we have a more positive result to discuss next week, perchance. Let's hope so anyway. But yeah, please leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment below giving your thoughts about the derby. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree about the Tarkowski challenge. And yeah, subscribe to the Toffee channel for more Everton content, and we will see you for the next podcast. Up the Toffees.